Well, good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. There's still a few people to join the meeting. I'm just going to start with a couple general slides about how the meeting's going to proceed. I am Lori Hayes with the Saskatchewan Seed Growers Association, and this is a joint presentation. It's our Seed Talk Series 2021. The topic today is seed regulatory modernization. And we are hosting it in partnership with the Manitoba Seed Growers Association and the Alberta Seed Growers. And we do have Jennifer Seward and Kelly Chambers involved as well. That'll be helping us with the Q&A, and if you want to reach out to them if you have any questions. So a couple things to start with. Everyone that's on the meeting will be placed on mute during the presentations and the Q&A session. If you hear an echo, you likely have both your phone and computer audio on, so you can press pound and your participant ID pound on your phone or and your computer audio will be disconnected. If you have technical difficulties, you can text Jeff at 403-975-9981 or email him at jeff@colesag.com. We've also put that information into the chat. And a note that this seminar is being recorded. There are two ways to ask questions. One is through the Q&A, so you can submit a question at any time during the session. And then when the presentation is done, then the panelists and those of us helping in the background will either address the answer, and it'll either be live or typed. Or you can raise your hand. If you do raise your hand, then we will go to it. We will unmute you. And then you may have to make sure that you unmute yourself so that you can talk. And then when you're done, please mute yourself again. So this is what it kind of looks like. It's at the bottom. There's a raise your hand. Here's the Q&A. The host will see a note that you've raised your hand. We'll go to you, unmute you. And the bottom one here is what it'll look like if you're on a mobile device. You need to type in your participation, pound, and you'll see the controls at the bottom. And as I mentioned, if you have any problems technically, give Jeff a shout. The information again is in the chat box. So the agenda for today is we're very pleased to welcome Wendy Yon, Roy Van Wyk, and Michael Scheffel. They are all working on the working group for the seed modernization or regulatory modernization initiative, and are here to give us some information and available to ask questions at the end. So to begin with, we welcome Wendy Yon, and Wendy, you can take control of the screen now.
Okay, thank you. Can everyone hear me all right? Okay, and can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Excellent. Okay, good morning, everyone. I wanted to thank the Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba Seed Growers Association for this opportunity. I'm very pleased to have this opportunity to give you, to provide an update on the seed regulatory modernization process, and especially to talk about the needs assessment survey and opportunities for seed growers to participate and provide feedback. Sorry, just making sure. There we go. The seed system involves a wide range of stakeholders, from breeders to seed companies, growers, conditioners, and analysts, third-party delivery bodies, and producers, of course, who are not regulated parties per se, but the consumers of seed. And actually the main purpose of the Seeds Act and regulations is to protect farmers from using seed of low quality and from fraud. And it also creates a level playing field for companies and individuals involved in seed production. But with this wide group of stakeholders involved in the seed sector, there's a wide range of familiarity with the Seeds Act and regulations. It actually applies to two related but separate industries, seed and seed potato. So the seed program is where we have all the diversity in terms of crop types. But the seed program is much less diverse. It's the one commodity, and it's very different in terms of its, of course, by its fleshy tuber. And there's a lot of issues that are unique to seed potatoes because of that aspect. And they also have a large focus on trade with the United States. So there's domestic and trade with one major trading partner. So lots of differences, but we're part of the same, act and regulations, and are in this modernization process together. And as much as it's important to talk about the things that seed regulatory modernization includes, it's also very important to make a distinction between what it doesn't include, because it's not all issues within the seed space. It doesn't include plants with novel traits, even though that is part of the same regulations, at least the environmental release side of that. It's not including that. There is a process to make improvements and changes in that space, but it's policy work, not regulatory. And it's a separate process called plant breeding innovation. So that work is going on. It also doesn't include plant breeders' rights. That's a separate act in regs. That is the value creation work that I'm sure everyone is very familiar with. So it does not include that. And also on the potato side, there's sometimes confusion that it includes phytosanitary requirements. That's a big part of the potato certification program, and it doesn't include that either. So that's just giving you the scope. So as we mentioned, there's a diverse range of stakeholders involved. And one of the important stakeholder groups, they're all important, but one of the ones that's a little more challenging to reach out to, but it's very important that we do involve producers and commodity value chain associations. As you all well know, farmers who grow food and feed bear the risk of potentially using substandard seed, and who unfortunately sometimes fall victim to fraud. We're not saying that happens in the majority of cases, but very rarely. But that's essentially, as we discussed previously, why we have, or some of the basic reasons why there is a Seeds Act and regulation. So clearly producers should have a strong voice in how they're being modified. And we've heard recently producers have expressed the need to be engaged in regulatory modernizations involving seed. That was heard loud and clear through the value creation consultation process, that producers were requesting to be involved, potentially earlier in the process. And so we're hoping to do that with this initiative. And it's not that by any means it's not important to hear from our other stakeholder groups, but we hear frequently from them, or more so from our regulated parties than the consumers of seeds. So that's why I'm emphasizing the challenge of reaching out to that stakeholder sector. And so we're cognizant, of course, that the best time to consult with farmers is during the winter months, when they have more time available to dedicate to things like this without the pressures of the growing season. So the way that we are doing this, the path forward is to have many opportunities for our stakeholder sectors to engage. And we have a working group, and this is a working group through the AFC value chain roundtables, and we have balanced membership. And this working group is actually going to help us develop our regulatory amendments before we go out for broad-based consultation. So it's going to be in a co-development format, where government works with stakeholders at the beginning of the process to come up with the ideas for regulatory amendment options. And so we've tried to have a balance of stakeholder representation on this working group. So of course, government's at the table. We also have producer groups, commodity value chain associations, public breeders, industry. Seed Potato has a representative. They also have a separate working group because their issues are so very different. And we have some special interest groups at the table as well. One of the objectives of this working group is to, or the objective is to develop a set of recommendations for input to CFIA as we develop the proposed regulatory, the options for regulatory amendments. And of course, we have the balanced representation because we want to ensure that any changes that are made, that we understand the impact on the various sectors, and they can bring their perspective to the table. So to get an idea of how the co-development process works, this diagram might help. It might not because it's pretty confusing, but just to explain it. So the working group itself will be looking at kind of the big picture issues within the seed program. We're not limiting any discussion to just specifically regulatory issues. We need to talk about the big picture, the seed program, the sector, the seed system as a whole, and have a vision of how we want it to proceed. And then CFIA will have to understand what the specific regulatory amendment changes are needed to support that system's that vision. So what we're going to do is divide. We need to work out the details. The devil's in the details. So some of this detailed work is going to be done with task teams. So we're going to have another opportunity to have stakeholders participate on these task teams. We hope to have a similar balance as the working group, and they're going to discuss these more specific topics and come up with options for change and recommend them to the working group who's looking at the big picture and will hopefully be able to meld some of these changes into a more cohesive vision. And these recommendations will be going to the CFIA, and we will take the changes that the CFIA supports and do broad-based consultations for a wider group of stakeholders to comment on. So this is the way we hope to have, throughout the whole process, have input from impacted sectors. This is slightly different than sometimes consultations have gone with government, where it's a little bit more insular. Government works on options and then does broad-based stakeholder consultation. So you still get input, but the concept that's different here is that we're at the table developing it instead of just reacting. So this is a rather ambitious timeline. I just wanted to put it up so people understand a little bit about the process. It's not necessary to understand everything, but I think one of the key things here is that it's not that we're limited, but we have to ensure that it's in the winter months that we do consultation to make sure that we are able to reach all of our stakeholder groups. So we'll be doing one this winter, which we'll talk about in just a second. But we also hope to be ready to have some consultations next winter as well. And so that will help us get broad-based input and keep the process moving and make sure that we have some proposals that will be somewhat acceptable from our stakeholder community when we do go to the final consultation per se, is when we publish our proposed regulatory amendments in Canada Gazette 1. So that is the Government of Canada's vehicle to consult to the whole public, not just impacted stakeholders, but the whole broad public on anything that they want to change with the regulations. So that in itself is a consultation period, and changes can be made if the government hears input from impacted stakeholders and from the public, where if they have concern, there can be changes to what's been proposed before they're finally published in Canada Gazette 2. And that's when the government lets the public know when, what the final regulatory amendments will look like. So it's a long process. We have some to be determined on this graph because it's pretty ambitious, and it's these numbers aren't a guarantee. they're targets. So we know it's a multi-year process. We know there's a lot of work ahead of us. So what's really exciting is we've worked with the working group to develop our first broad-based consultation vehicle, and that's our needs assessment survey. So the survey is a great example of co-development. It was co-developed with the working group. And since the knowledge base of our broad, of our multitude of stakeholders and sectors for our different commodities, the knowledge base ranges widely. So the survey was designed to be completed without in-depth knowledge. But there is some information at the beginning of each question for people to get enough background to hopefully be able to answer the questions. And so what we're really looking for with this initial consultation is, so we're doing this at the beginning to get some baseline information, some background understanding of, what are the benefits of the current regulatory framework? What are the opportunities for change and what issues need to be addressed? And, what's the comfort with some further industry delivery of regulatory service? What's exciting about this process is that the government has signaled that we're open to potentially substantive change. So it's really important to understand from our stakeholders what their thoughts on the current system is, so that we can keep that in mind when we do go forward with options for regulatory change. So this needs assessment survey will inform the working group and the task teams as they do their work to develop these options for potential change and this vision for the seed system in the future. So the survey itself consists of some demographic questions that will help us make better use of the information we receive. The stakeholders can fill it out for seed or seed potato or both for the smaller group that might have input on both processes. It should take around 15 to 20 minutes to complete, and we will post a what we heard report on our website. So what would greatly help us with this initiative is if associations could fill it out on behalf of their organization. So if the Manitoba, Alberta, and Saskatchewan, and Ontario, and Atlantic, and Quebec, all of the seed grower associations would fill it out, of course, CSGA, but we also very much want to hear from individual seed growers, producers, seed companies, seed conditioners, all of the individual stakeholders as well. So we would very much appreciate it if you would make this survey broadly known amongst your members and encourage them to fill this out. So this is your opportunity to input directly into this process. Of course, we welcome your input at any time. We've on the last slide, and we can certainly make sure it's available. We do have a generic email address for this process. And if you don't see questions that address specific things you would like to be addressed, at any time, we'd be more than happy to receive your comments, and the government can consider those, but we can also pass them on so it can be part of the working group and task teams discussions. Of course, as seed growers, you can continue to provide involvement in the Seed Regulatory Modernization Working Group. As you all know, Mike is very active in that, and Doug Miller is on that group as well. You can supply representatives to be on those task teams. And number one right now is we're really hoping you'll distribute and promote the survey to your members. And you could even promote it to other associations as well. And if you have had any discussions within your associations on views and visions for your association for change you'd like to see, if you could share that with us, we'd appreciate that as well. So there's a number of ways that we're hoping that you'll be able to provide your feedback. So the survey, I've been saying this for days now, but the survey should be launched tomorrow. So this is a very timely presentation and a bit of a commercial to get you to fill out the survey. So we're hoping to send a live link to our working group members today. That's the plan. And then we should be able to have some of our communication products, or some broad-based emails and notice to industry and our websites. So stay tuned. I'm hoping that CSGA, the national office, will be able to ensure that all of the provincial associations have access. I had hoped to include the link to the survey itself on this slide, but I'm just hours away from having that. So I don't have it right now, but it should be available soon. So thank you so much for your participation. I'm thanking you in advance for your participation in the survey. And of course, we need to hear from SEGOR. So it's very important that you do participate. So thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you, Wendy. We will have all the Q&A at the end after each of the presentations. And now we would like to introduce Roy Van Wyk. He is the industry co-chair for the seed regulatory modernization. And Wendy will just stop sharing your screen.
Can you do that? I've lost the screen where I can do that. Are you able to do that? Let's see if I can do it. Oh, okay. I can do it. Is it stopped?
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Roy, welcome you to our seminar today. Thank you so much, Wendy.
Well, thank you, everybody. It's certainly my pleasure to be here today. I'd like to thank Saskatchewan, the Manitoba, and the Alberta Seed Growers Associations for hosting this event. It's really important for us to get the word out that we're up and running again. It's unfortunately, that we were close to it last year, and the pandemic, of course, had many impacts. So we're happy to be able to be up and running again this year. It's certainly an honor for me to represent the industry at large, I guess, as the co-chair, supporting Wendy. My role, I guess, my role is really in support in nature. This is a CFIA process, and it should probably say it's been facilitated by Agriculture, is being facilitated by Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada. So the same group that support the value chain roundtables have been very, very supportive of this process and are helping us with all the work related to the working group itself and eventually with the task team. So we appreciate their support. My role again is largely facilitation. So I'm not a decision maker. I'm trying to support Wendy, working with you and the stakeholders. So I'm sort of the stakeholder rep. I'm here to listen to the industry at large, to your comments. So if you have some comments that you want to discuss, feel free to reach out to me. That's part of my role. So that's I guess in short, that's what I'm here to do. But I'll be involved a little bit more to this stage. To date, Wendy's been doing a lot of work with Ag Canada getting things organized, and it's taken a little bit longer, but I think it was well worth it because the survey, CFI has done a real nice job taking feedback from the working group members and adjusting the survey, and it was hoped to have it out sooner, but I think the delay was worth it because I think it's a very comprehensive survey now. So we're happy that we're there. And so that's the background work. A lot of the legwork's done. We're working, we have another working group meeting tomorrow, and we'll be talking, digging into the task teams and the terms of reference for them. And then hopefully setting up, getting ready for the committee members and the membership of the task team. So if you're interested, please let Mike Scheffel know, let Doug Miller know. I think he's supporting Mike if Mike's not available on the working group. We need people to fill those working groups and share their comments. If you're not comfortable, participating on a task team, that's fine. Please share your comments. It doesn't matter if your scope, your background or your knowledge is narrow of the entire seed industry. Your experience and the things that are causing you grief or issue, or the things that you think are working well, it's important that you share that information. Just gonna do a quick check on my notes. I have, I guess, one of my big concerns, time of change. We've seen it with when things have been delegated to the industry in the past. It always adds on a layer of cost to the industry. So, I think it's important for us to take a comprehensive look at this, but also be very aware of what we ask for. So we can take on more responsibilities as an industry, but it may come with a cost. So, where can we, I like to keep working with you, I guess, as the industry co-chair, to see where we, what can be cut, what can we stop doing? What do we need to start doing? What would the cost be? What would the potential costs be of taking on new responsibilities? So these are all kind of questions I know we're at, I always worry, because a lot of conversations I have with seed industry stakeholders is that we feel to a degree that we're at the limit of what the industry could bear from cost, but there is this balancing act related to efficiency. So if we can gain some efficiencies, is a little bit more cost okay? And so that's a question for you. That's not one I can answer. We'll answer that one hopefully together. I think I would close. Say please. My email address is going to be changing in a few days as we amalgamate. CSI amalgamates into Seeds Canada. So we're going to be communicating with you. So if you want to reach out to me, my new credentials or contact information will be out to the industry very shortly. But this is, again, is a CFIA process. I'm not a decision maker. I'm here to help you and help the industry. So thank you to everybody for hosting this for us. It gives us a chance to reach out to you, and we look forward to working with you over the next 2 years as we try and modernize our seed regs.
Thank you so much, Roy. And we really appreciate you giving us the time this afternoon to tell us what your role is in the modernization initiative. All right, we will move now to Mike Scheffel. And Mike, if you want to unmute yourself and give us a little bit of perspective based on what you're seeing as the CSGA representative.
Okay, thank you, Lori, and good morning, everyone. Pleasure to be here today with you. I think what I will do here is sort of focus on CSGA's internal processes here to develop our policy positions on the seed reg mod and the type of issues that we feel are most important to the organization and to our members, and what we feel is in the best interest of agriculture overall. So within the CSGA, we have established a subcommittee of our policy planning and governance committee that is focused on policy and seed reg modernization initiative here. This subcommittee is chaired by Scott Horner, a national board member from Alberta, and the subcommittee is being assisted by myself from the staff, as well as Gail Harris and Lakshana Mahabir from the office. We have a number of seed growers and others who have volunteered to participate in the subcommittee, and we're working with them to work towards some policy positions. And I will note that a number of those subcommittee members are actually participating on this call today. Mitchell Japp, former national board member representing the province of Saskatchewan, and now with Sask Barley, is a member of this subcommittee. Brian Harvey from the University of Saskatchewan is also on this committee. Both Linnell and Lyndon Olson are on the committee, and Lyndon, I noted, was a participant today. Simon Ellis from Manitoba, who's also on the call today, is a member of the committee, along with Peter Centimeri from Ontario and Roxanne Asselin from Quebec. So we've got a small but fairly diverse group of people there who are going to be working with CSJ staff to go through a number of the issues that have been identified, and some of them have already volunteered to be potential participants in some of the task teams. So we've made a start towards that. And we've had a couple of meetings already from this group. We've asked them to, we provided them with a recommended reading list, and over the holiday period there, we met a second time a week ago to talk about some of the information that was shared through that reading list. And we'll be meeting again next Wednesday to start digging into some of the issues and coming up with various options and rationale for those decisions as well. So that's sort of the structure and the process that we're going to be working with internally at CSGA to develop recommendations that will go to the policy committee, that will eventually go to the board for final decisions. So we're a large organization. We'll be also working with, through our interbranch coordination committee, we'll be working with all of the branches as well to keep them updated on developments here and to get their input as well. And I encourage anybody who has any questions about Seed Reg Mod or clarification about different things, anyone who is considering putting, stepping forward to participate in any of these task teams that are being developed, to drop me a line, let me know, and we can work with you to see how we can make that happen. So I'll leave it at that for now, and be open to the Q&A portion of this segment. Okay.
Thanks so much, Mike. Oh, sorry, cut you off there just about. Thanks so much for the information, and thank all three of you again for being part of our Seed Talk series today. And the floor is now open for questions. You can either type your question into the Q&A, or you can use the raise hand function and we can unmute you and you can ask your questions directly. And just a note, sometimes there's a little bit of lag time in between when we get, okay, we have a comment from Wayne Amos. I hope we are not heading in the same direction the fertilizer industry has gone. Now that CFIA has exited regulation, we as producers have no guarantee of analysis, and there are a lot of witches brews out there. It's now buyer beware more than ever.
I can quickly just add a comment to this. What you're talking about there, Wayne, is probably a direct result of a decision that was made at CFIA in 2012 to remove the efficacy requirement for fertilizers. It was decided that fertilizers would only be subject to safety requirements and no longer have to prove efficacy. And so that did open the door for a number of fertilizer and supplement products to come forward for evaluation and registration with the fertilizer section at CFIA. It was intended to, reduce the cost to get to commercialization, and the focus was then on maintaining the safety. but it's had some unintended consequences, I think it's fair to say. And this is something that Wendy and her team have definitely highlighted as something that we need to keep in mind going forward as we develop options for change, to be well aware of what some unintended consequences might be of the changes that are being proposed.
And if I may add to that, the purpose of the regulatory modernizations, all the ones that CFIA has done, is not specifically, and I can say more with more assuredness for the seed, it's not cost reduction the way the 2012 deficit action reduction plan changes, and that is where the changing the efficacy regulatory service, I guess, or the regulatory mandate for the CFIA. That's where that came from. So we don't have, of course, the agency is going to be open to ideas that would have cost savings. They would be readily open to that, but that's not the purpose of this. We're trying to modernize. We're trying to ensure that there's efficient regulation to stimulate economic development. That's what we're trying to do. And if there are some cost savings opportunities, of course, the CFIA is going to be looking at that, but that's not the driver for this. We don't have a specific agenda with that respect. Some of the really specific agendas we have is something called incorporation by reference, where we want to take some of the, the schedules and the lists we have in the regulations that are very hard to change and have them exist outside of the regulations so that we can change them more frequently. An example of this list are the crop type subject to variety registration. In order to, we've introduced in 2009 a flexible variety registration system, and in order for a crop type to move to a more flexible tier, we have to go through a regulatory amendment, which is a very long process. If we move it out of regulations, there'll still be a process to have some flexibility there, but it will be not subject to parliamentary schedules, not nearly as long, we hope, of a process. So we want to bring some flexibility. That's an example of things we really would like to see coming out of seed regulatory modernization. And then we're open to talking about other substantive change, but we don't have anything on the agenda that would be parallel to what happened with fertilizer. But I can certainly understand where your comments are coming from on that. So thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. We've had a question in from Lyndon Stoll. I may have missed where the link for the needs assessment survey will be posted. Could you indicate that?
It will be posted on the CFIA website. We'll be sending out a notice to industry. We will certainly, I'll turn it to Mike. I'm hoping that the CSGA can ensure that all members receive communications with that link, but we will be tomorrow. It should be on CFIA's website, that link, and we'll be broadcasting it more publicly then.
Thanks, Wendy. We've got
Roy, you had mentioned that you wanted to say something about that question, and I see that you've put in the chat the link.
Yeah, sorry, I put the link from Wendy's presentation there, the cfia.seedregmod-modrigs link, but that's, I think, that's a communication link, Wendy. Yeah, that's for communications. It's not the link to the website, so my apologies.
There was another question from Kurt Prince to Wendy. Could you comment on the scope or scale of the seed regulatory modernization, and are any changes off the table?
Okay, so for scope, I think I did a little bit of that at the beginning of so we're looking at the seed system, the seed program, not including plants with novel traits, not including value creation, and not including on the potato side phytosanitary. But in terms of, there's some limitations. We have, there's, in terms of what's within a regulatory jurisdiction. So things that are, that would be very large and would be more subject to the act, or even what we call, like if somebody said we don't need to regulate seed anymore, that's not possible because that would be a machinery of government. You need to look at, no longer having an act. Like, so, there's some limitations. And then there's some official limitations because of where our authorities lie. Then there's some other limitations, such as if the industry would have to make a very good case. If they wanted, when I say industry, I mean stakeholders, would have to make a very, very good case if they wanted something that would cost the agency more money. So when I'm saying the main goal here is not cost savings, if something is suggested that would cost more, it would need to be very clearly and justified. There'd have to be consensus. And even then, so there's some limitations that going that way. We are saying we're open to hearing things. I can't make a guarantee that something isn't going to come on the table that isn't, that wouldn't be palatable to the government, because our responsibility, we talk a lot about service, and in this act and regs, because we are different from a lot of the acts and regs that are more safety oriented. So we want to make sure that these regulations serve our stakeholder community now and in the future. But ultimately, we are responsible to Canadians. So if there are things that we have to step in as government and say, for the greater good of Canada's economy, and we're less safety oriented, and we may have to put things in place, and there's some safety aspects. But I don't think we have a lot of barriers, but I wouldn't say it's carte blanche. So I know that's vague, but it's really going to have to come down to what kind of things are brought up, what kind of things are discussed. We're not coming to the table saying, this is what we want to have happen. There's obviously incorporation by reference, and there's some other things. We want to see some discussions happen. We want to talk about the grade tables. We want to know, do we still need a grading system for seed in Canada? We want to have that discussion. So there's some things like this that we want to have happen. So I would guess I could say, relative to other regulatory modernization processes, I don't think there's a lot of things off the table, but I'm not going to say nothing's off the table. Of course there will be some things, but we're going to have to deal with it as it comes up.
Thanks, Wendy. We've got another question from Renee Hoyme. Wendy mentioned seed potatoes in her presentation. As CFIA moves towards more private involvement in industry, is there any inclination from CFIA if or when seed potatoes will move to private inspection?
I have to start by saying that's not really for me to answer. And anything that comes forward for suggested regulatory amendments would have to have consensus. And so maybe I'll just leave it there. There'd have to be consensus that's something that's wanted from that stakeholder community. And so I think that's all I should say, because that really isn't under my responsibilities.
Wendy, I might just add that because so much of the seed potato industry is dependent on the export markets, and especially into the United States. And in the past, when the seed potato program has tried to move towards privatization on some aspects like tuber grading and things like this, they found a lot of pushback from the United States, either not necessarily the federal government, but the state governments to which these seed potatoes are being exported. And because they have an official programs down there, they have not been particularly open to the idea of Canada further privatizing activities within the seed potato program. And a lot of it has to do because of the extreme importance of phytosanitary issues that are related to seed potatoes, and the requirement for like almost annual like inspector training and updates and information and laboratory tests, and it's quite a bit more complicated in some ways than the seed part of the business. So you know, the exporting countries will be a big determinant, you could say, I think, in where things end up on seed potatoes.
Thanks, Mike and Wendy. Are there any other questions? You can put your hand up with the raised hand function, or you can type it into the Q&A. What I'll do is I'll just move on to the rest of my PowerPoint with a couple info questions or some information, and we'll still watch the Q&A. That'll give you some time to type in the Q&A. So I'm just going to put in a little bit of a blurb for the rest of our Seed Talk series that are coming up this winter. 2 weeks from now, we'll have a presentation from Ag Canada and the Crop Development Center breeders that will showcase the new varieties across Western Canada. And then on February the 25th, we'll have a presentation on seed quality across the prairies. So we'll have seed labs from the 3 provinces give us an update on what they've been finding in the testing that they've been doing. And we're also going to have a presentation from Mike Harding about the bacterial leaf streak, which is a relatively new pest that has very severe consequences on yield for your crop. Then on March 11th, we're going to continue our seed growing series that we started last year, where we will have some mentoring seed growers and information from inspectors, a crop insurance update, and probably a couple other information sessions. And that's presented by Bayer Seed Growth. Sorry, the seed quality is presented by Discovery Seed Labs. And then on March 25th, we're going to have some updates from CSGA on all the programs that they're working on and introducing some of their information. And there'll be more details about those. And that is presented by Westland Insurance Group, which was formerly Farrell. And there'll be details to follow. So please watch for the information that we're going to send out, or go to our website, which is new, by the way. Our new website is launched, and you can go there to check out more information. And I'd like to thank our sponsors: Bayer Seed Growth, Discovery Seed Labs, Westland Insurance, CCAN, Syngenta, FP Genetics, Lewis M. Carter Manufacturing, SGS Canada, Next Seed, and CropLife Canada. As we mentioned before, the 3 prairie provinces are partnering in presenting these Seed Talk series, and you can contact any of us at the provincial branches, myself, Jennifer Seward, or Kelly Chambers, for any information about any of these. And as we mentioned at the beginning, they will be recorded and it will be put on our website for anybody to access. So if you hear of anybody who wants to see it, then we can direct them to the website. I don't see any further questions. Jennifer or Kelly, do you have anything to add?
Kelly here. No,
sorry.
We didn't get our cues right. I don't have any further comments except to say thank you to Saskatchewan for taking the lead on getting educational information out to growers. We appreciate the opportunity to partner in as you were already well into your planning. So again, thanks to Saskatchewan Seed Growers Association, and to Manitoba for suggesting we combine our efforts.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I agree. This has been a really exciting series to work on. I just wanted to get back to one last thing, just a point of clarification, and maybe Wendy or Mike can comment this. We've been told throughout, like, information we've gotten on seed-reg modernization, that the intent is not to actually open the act. It's just tweaks that we can do without that formal action. This is true, or is there will there be consideration to open the act at all?
So this process is specifically the regulations, but if the working group develops a vision that couldn't possibly, that would necessitate opening up the act, I would not say that that's impossible. It's just, it's not something that we're planning on doing specifically. So I wouldn't ever want to say that's not happening. It's not happening in the context of this process. But as I mentioned, if something's identified that, this is really needed to make this vision implemented, it would have to happen at a later time. So it's not impossible.
Well, thank you, Wendy, Roy, and Mike, for all of your information and time this morning. And we certainly appreciate the opportunity that you've given to our members to be able to have a direct conversation with you. And thanks again. And thank you to everyone who participated. And any feedback you have, please send it along to either the three of us. And we appreciate your time today. Thank you.